Well, I've decided to ditch my D7000 Nikon for a GH5. Let me tell you why. So I'm really not ditching my D7000 camera fully. It's still a really good camera. It does great still photos. But when it comes to video, it's definitely lacking a lot of features. I bought this camera over 4 years ago, and I've made quite a few films for clients. And, you know, some of the earlier stuff we have done on YouTube was on the D7000. So it was a good camera for that case. However, in today's world, we need some more features. And one of the cameras that I've fallen in love with is one that my friend Erich uses, who you've seen in my other YouTube videos, and it's the GH5. But really, he's the one we should be talking to. He's a major fan of the GH5, so he can break down some of the things that he likes about the camera. So he's probably the best person to tell you about why I'm switching to the GH5. He knows all the technical information in and out about this wonderful camera. The first thing I really like about the GH5 is the amount of options I get.
And action. Dude, what? Chris, what's going on here?
Slow-mo, man. That's the slow-mo shot part.
I can turn on slow motion with the GH5.
What?
When we're talking about GH5, I think one thing that people liked the most about it is the fact that there's so many shooting options. In terms of bitrate, quality, color, one key thing, of course, is that this GH5 does 120 frames per second. You can go up 180 frames per second, but we generally want to keep it 120 for better quality at 1080p. Now, this also does 10-bit recording, which means you're getting more color information, and it does something called All-I. You cannot hide. Which is a codec, so a way that the camera captures the video in that every single frame is captured. Now the files could get pretty big, but if you have the capacity for it, it's the highest quality kind of codec you can get, aside from going into more dedicated external recorders or cinema cameras and stuff like that.
And number two, I like the flip monitor. This might sound silly, especially for a lot of you watching YouTube videos, because you're like, hey, what are you talking about, Chris? Every camera we have, there's a flip monitor. If you are a Nikon camera owner, you will know what I'm suffering with. Why we like the flip screen is in situations like this, or if you're vlogging, it's really good to be able to see what you're filming.
The advantage of this GH5 screen here too, and just to get a little bit more nerdy on it, is that because this is not a DSLR, you're not switching between live mode and, you know, like viewfinder focus systems and different things. Everything can be controlled on the screen like an iPhone or a smartphone if you're using Android.
Third thing I like about this is the stabilization feature. Now, I'm gonna let Erich talk about that and why it comes in handy, especially if we're filming shots where we need to move around.
The thing that is probably the best about this GH5 is how well the stabilization works on it. The sensor itself is actually able to move around. That actually adds physical image stabilization. And there's also digital image stabilization too that you can choose in the menus here that adds in a little bit even more stabilization. Now it's great because you can actually walk around, get those really nice shots, you know, as if you were on a slider. If you walk really smooth at slow motion at 120, you can almost feel like it's on a gimbal. The other thing is that it also works with other lenses that have stabilization. So if your lens has stabilization, it adds basically 5 ways of stabilization in there.
When I did do some filming, especially for corporate videos, I found that I always had to go rent a glide cam just to make sure the shots were nice and clean, because I have filmed before without it, and sometimes when I'm video editing, I get motion sickness from watching the footage. So this is a good thing with the stabilization option on the GH5.
Hey Chris, you're sweating bullets. How's the video coming?
Man, it is so hard. The footage is so shaky, Eric. Well, you know me and motion sickness.
Oh no 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 no!
So that's another thing about the GH5, Eric, is the options I found. There's a mic input. As you saw, we just had the Rode mic on. Again, very good for vlogging, capturing audio, and some other features. You can control this with your app on your smartphone. We've used that before in some of our other shoots as well for clients. And I have to say it does come in handy, especially if we have the camera boomed up and we can't really see the preview screen. We can always look at it on our app.
This is a professional, I would say this is a very professional level video camera. I would say it's video first, almost more than stills camera. And that's because you get options like the mic input, like Chris was saying. Equally importantly is the often missing headphone output to monitor or to get a second line of audio out to, let's say, an external recorder for backup. And if you go into something a little more fancy, you want external recorders or external monitors, you have a full-size HDMI port, which is really nice. Achilles heel of the GH5, the contrast detection system on this here for video doesn't really give you great autofocus. For most people, when they're making films, they're not going to rely on autofocus anyways. You're going to be pulling focus on their own, manual focus. But I have to say, one area where that comes, like I have camera envy, especially if you watch Peter McKinnon with his great 120 frames per second slow motion, is there is no autofocus at all when you do variable frame rate or high frame rate filming on this here. In fact, I wish they would just let you set the focus with this half press and let you start shooting, but you actually have to find your focus, and then shoot something in 120.
All right, guys. So that's really, I just want to talk about some of the few things that have sold me on moving over to the GH5. And as I said, I'm not fully ditching my D7000. It's still a great camera. It takes still shots. Still going to use it for that. But yeah, this is introduction to the GH5. Eric's probably going to be putting a lot more technical videos about the gear on YouTube. So watch out for those videos. And yeah, if you like what you see, don't forget to click the subscribe button below and give us a like, a thumbs up. Now, if you do use the GH5 or whatever camera you're using, I want to hear from you. Put your comments below and let me know what you like to use and what you like or don't like about the GH5.